Now, this man called Gerdnel, his law firm, by the way, he used to work here at the Road Accident Fund before he left. He left, I think, in 2001 and went to form a practice. You can imagine how he felt when in 2002, Kathy Satchwell came and said, we think the road accident benefit scheme will help South Africa move forward. A year after he has just formed his practice, coming out of the Road Accident Fund. Having studied the Road Accident Fund inefficiencies and built his law firm on the basis of that. So he does nothing else except RAF work. He must actually show you where he does anything else. So what happens when such an organization, then RAF changes? It's like I said this to the panel that we had, the defense panel in 2019. I said, you see, the Road Accident Fund, when it digitizes, it does not call owners of photocopiers machines and say, we want to digitize and use less paper. We don't expect them to be happy. Equally, when we deal with the issue of this litigation that we need to change, talking to lawyers and saying we are changing it and expecting them to be happy about it would be a fallacy. I think it will be remiss of us and quite stupid from us to think about it that way. So we went on to do this work. They've been trying to influence us, otherwise we have rejected that with the contempt it deserves. But they have never stopped, by the way. They thought that by winning the battle which they won, which is the RAF's bill being kicked out of Parliament through their work, which they pride themselves with, forming an organization in 2014 called Association for Protection of Road Accident Victims, which does not have a single person, a member, who is a road accident victim, but is made out of lawyers, and they say it's a bunch of concerned professionals. They are not concerned about claimants, they are concerned about themselves. But I think what becomes important is this 2021 document printed in the Advocate magazine called The Collapse of RAF Litigation Imperils the Most Vulnerable at the Bar. And I think it's important that one looks at this to understand the context in which what we are dealing with. Now, over the past period of 5 years, Gerdnel attorneys have been paid over 2.2 billion from the Road Accident Fund. So you can go and do, if you know the mathematics of it, 2.4 billion, 25% of it will be, let's say, 550. Yeah. So for 2 billion, we know that a quarter of it is 500 million. So that's what this man made for himself, at least. Now, you are not shocked why. Then this man fights this much. He wants to continue. And you can imagine that part of it has been what we have reduced, because if you look at the numbers before then, they were making much more. So this is a man that has made 2.2 billion, at least 500 million, which was going to the pockets of the Gerdnel Incorporated. He's a master of contingency fee agreements. He even prides himself with winning an award for understanding the contingency fee agreements and the way it works. And of course, other indiscretions, including charging us attorney-client costs when it was supposed to be party-party costs, which is something that we are also looking at. But what I'm saying is, once you see Gerdnel, think about $500 million he has made in the last 5 years, and ask him that question. So you think it's fair that you run around, fill a few forms, and all you get is 500 million. So this is a millionaire we are talking about if he's not a multi-billionaire by now. Right. They want to distort history. So he uses Professor Klopper. He introduced me to Professor Klopper, by the way. I listened to Professor Klopper. I used to have very serious, I took the man very seriously. I wrote in one of the articles, I've got a complimentary copy from him called The Law of Third-Party Compensation in South Africa, written by him. But you can imagine, if we change the law, what happens to that book? It becomes obsolete. It becomes obsolete. He has written contradictory things, and I don't know why the media never asks him why, Prof, you are writing today, you are saying this, the next day you are saying the other. In his own book, the Road Accident Fund is a social benefit scheme. Lately, he has written to say the Road Accident Fund is an insurer. In his own book. So academically, we are told in his book that this is the issue. We doubt he's writing these things himself. The prof, as I'm akin to calling him, is old now. I doubt he's writing these things himself. But when an old man starts contradicting himself, some of us have got old parents, we understand what's going on. It may well be age taking the effects on the prof, and we hope so, because certainly what he's now spewing is propaganda, or his name is used to spew this propaganda that is about the RAF. Now, you are going to struggle to understand where these guys come from, because every time they say the RAF is an insurer, we ask them, where do you get that from? Nowhere. By the way, editors in these newspapers edit out certain things. I've seen one journalist who came, did some work, and in the beginning of that article says RAF, the social insurance scheme, and I asked her, but where are you getting this from? She says it's an edit, added by the editor, because they want to drive a certain narrative that the RAF is an insurance. It's not. It's a social benefit scheme. It's classified as that by the classifications committee, by the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank issues what is called the Institutional Sector Classifications Guide. The most recent one, you can go to the website, is in July this year. We are still a social benefit fund as it is. So you are going to struggle to find all those things. Then they come. There's a very strange thing. If you remember last year, they had a big complaint. Their big complaint was that we made them queue for what is called block settlement. Block settlement is where we go and we try to settle matters. When we came in the RAF, the settlements were sitting at around 51%, and we have grown those settlements, not going to court, to about 82% over the period. And I said, you must remember the 100 matters a day. You must go. When it's now 55 matters a day at the courts, we are still accused of cloaking the courts. Right. So you see this in this space where people just tend to say things that are not supported by anything or any evidence. And we are clear that all these things are done to mislead South Africa. The aim is to attack the RAF. And I believe very strongly that the aim is to attack because people know that Collins Letswalo contract ends in August next year. And they think it's about me. It's really not about me. It's about South Africans. And there is a view that people share that the more noise they make, the more intervention will be. People come and say, come and go and intervene at the road accident fund. And the question is, intervene and do what exactly? That we are not doing. Because 120 days, we have targeted 120 days, we've got targets of the backlog. But I think what is also important is what Judge Fisher says in her judgment on the 29th of July, 2024, which tells the truth. From the history long and past, and more recently, it is clear that it cannot be in dispute that the current board, as many of its predecessors, inherited a fund that was insolvent. Bertelsmann J. in Ketsekele versus the Road Accident Fund remarked that whomsoever should manage RAF is settled with an inheritors damnosa, a cursed inheritance that would be doomed to failure. Now, we know what has been said by Kathy Satchwell in the Satchwell report of 2002. But also, we know what has happened in the other commissions of inquiry before them, at least 8 of them since the inception. We also know that the RAF collapsed twice, in 1964 and in 1986, in its 8-year history. And people must know that and go and study those events, because history has no blank pages.